Alright kids, in this video we're going to be discussing the Ebola virus. Oh, should we be scared to death of it? Is it out to kill us all? Alright, so Ebola. This will be so much fun. Now, all you've been hearing about, of course, if you turn on the news, is Ebola, Ebola, Ebola. Like, Ebola's everywhere. Like, it's just going to jump out of your closet and, like, rah, and attack you at any moment. Kill you within a matter of seconds. And if you watch the Lamestream Media at all, you notice this stuff. I've been around a while, and the media always just hypes and hypes and hypes everything. And if you pay any attention to them at all, you think we are all going to die from this. Like, death is imminent, we cannot escape. And the more you pay attention, the more you'll realize that the media they do this with everything. They just go nuts over everything. And of course, they do this for ratings and stuff like that. But it does have a huge impact. Because I saw a story just yesterday where, like, all of the major airlines, their stock is just plummeting because people are, like, scared to death to get on airplanes, and they're like, no, we're not going to fly, we're not going to fly, we're not going to fly. So, people are trying to dump their stocks and everything else. And, the planes, you hear about it, and probably half of these news stories, like, oh, these people came in from Africa, that's how these people, they're flying in, and oh, the toilets and everything else. And of course, they're like, we're all going to die. And I'm like, well, yeah, we're all going to die. It's just probably not going to be from Ebola, anytime soon. So, if we kind of look at some timeline stuff on this, now, I don't remember anything about this in the summer. Maybe I just wasn't paying attention. I don't know. This is pretty good water. But, the thing is, about September, it started, and you heard about the Ebola outbreaks, heard about the people over there working, around people who were infected and stuff. And in September 2014, we got the first victim. They died just a few weeks later. And the freak out show kind of started from there. So I kind of got curious, I can't believe I haven't been asked any questions about this at school, especially in the civics current events class. I expect it to come up like at any time. And I didn't know a whole lot about it. I mean, I kind of knew it's a bad thing. You don't want anything to do with it at all. I knew it was Central Africa, near the equator. I knew it had been around for a while. So I'm like, all right, I kind of got to go look this stuff up and kind of figure out what's going on. So, first reported case, Central Africa, 1976. Okay, so this virus is older than I am. It's been around longer than me. And I'm getting pretty old, and, there's a lot of gray hairs and stuff up here. But, I'm still kicking, I'm still alive, and, I never really had heard about Ebola until very, very recently. So, it's named after the Ebola River, which is why I like looking into this stuff. Instead of listening to the media, oh, you're going to die tomorrow! I'm like, well, I'll go figure this stuff out. So I was looking, and it's named after the Ebola River. That's the banks of the river where the first people to become infected with this were from. So they actually think this originated from bats. And this is fascinating, because you remember the swine flu, I'm sure. You remember the avian bird flu. There's the bubonic plague and all of this stuff. And until very recently, they were like, oh, the plague was carried by rats. Fleas getting on the rats crawling around. Well, kills a third of Europe. I actually saw a deal the other day where some guy in England's like, no, it wasn't rats because it spread too fast. Well, this is from bats originally, if the theories are right. And people are getting sick and dying in Africa, in pretty big numbers. And every phase of this stuff seems to get worse and worse and worse. But, more on that now. The timeline. The real gist of the timeline. So, it shows up in 76. They're thinking, bats, right? Getting people sick. They're dying. There were 3 separate outbreaks in the 1970s. Then, of course, the 80s. Wasn't really that bad. The 90s, there was 3 separate outbreaks. But since the year 2000, 11 out of the 14 years since then, there's been Ebola outbreaks, and it's just getting worse. Where you can see here, the bigger the circles, this is the central swath of Africa here. The bigger the circle, the worse apparently it was. But this current cycle, there's been more deaths, more recorded documented deaths than in all previous phases of this combined. So that's a little scary. So the media is going to hype that up because, they want you watching and everything else. But, if it started with bats and it just gets worse and these phases come through, the rat thing, I don't know that anyone else has jumped on board with that. Like the plague, no, it wasn't that. These viruses, they do seem to, go from one species to another, jumping around, and, people are going to freak out. Now, the problem with this is just how deadly it is and how rapid it actually moves. So this is a very, very, very aggressive disease. You don't want any part of it, trust me. What it actually does is it attacks your immune system. And the pictures of the people right before they die who had this were actually too gruesome for me to put in here. I mean, it's disgusting. It looked very much like the plague pictures, though. They get the wax dummies and they show the people what they would look like when they die. This was like disgusting boils and stuff. I mean, just really gross. And these were real pictures, so I was like, yeah, I'll take a pass on that. But they're out there, if you want to go see them. Not that I'm encouraging it or anything. But it shuts down your immune system very slowly. So the thing is, very quickly. Whereas like HIV, AIDS, you could have the AIDS virus, and if you can afford the medication, you can actually stay alive for a very long time. It shuts down your immune system. This, no messing around. I mean, you get this, about half the people who get it die. Depending on which version of this it is, it can be a 20-25% death rate. It can be up to 90%. It's usually around 50% of the people that catch this are going to die. And it's within a week of catching it. I mean, there's a window there of 5 to 9 days. You get this, there's a 50% chance you are dead. So, very, very aggressive. And the symptoms of it, it's misleading. When you first get sick, you sit around, you start feeling like you got the flu maybe, the fever, you're going to be sweating, your throat's going to start hurting, you're going to get really weak, but then the chest pain, then the stomach pain, you're going to start vomiting, your joints are going to start aching, you're going to get dysentery, your muscles are going to start aching, you're going to get very weak, and then you're going to start getting skin rashes, and eventually these rashes turn into these disgusting boils. I mean, some of them the size of golf balls are bigger, just, ugh. And before you know it, you got all this internal hemorrhaging, you got internal bleeding, external bleeding. This stuff starts opening up. You start bleeding everywhere. And that's actually how this is transmitted. It's actually transmitted. It's highly contagious, but you have to come into contact with someone who is infected and their bodily fluids. Now, the disturbing part is it usually takes about 21 days for this stuff to actually kick in. And then you got a 50% chance of dying within the week. But if you actually recover, if this stuff's still in your system, then you can still infect other people. But they have to actually come into contact with some of your bodily fluids. So this is actually very, very difficult to contract. And a lot of the stories I've seen, oh, I'm not getting on a plane. There's no way I'm getting on a plane. There could be people there. We should shut down all flights out of Central Africa. No one coming in, no one coming out. All of this. And they're like, I don't want to touch them. There was a story the other day of the guy who sneezed on a plane. He was made a joke about Ebola. So they landed the plane, quarantined it, brought in people with hazmat suits, and did all, this took hours to test this guy and see if he actually had Ebola or not. And of course he didn't, but you'd have to be an idiot to get on a plane and do that anyway. I mean, that's like shouting the B-O-M-B word on a plane. It's not going to be a good day for you if you do that. But, you have to come into contact with their bodily fluids. So I was thinking, oh gosh, the toilets, particularly women having to use these plain toilets. I mean, you wouldn't want any part of that, but in the reading, it was like, well, it cannot survive long outside of the human host, much like the AIDS virus. So, but they're like, this can go from species to species. So, like, dogs are big transmitters of this. So, dog got Ebola, starts licking you, or it pees somewhere and you're trying to clean it up. I was like, should we actually be concerned about this? But it's usually human to human. And the thing is, like, this is coming out of third world countries. So I was like, okay, how are they spreading it? And I actually found information that said, no, it's like from bedding ceremonies, burials, burial ceremonies, the bedding, I don't know about sweat, but, people just coming into contact with this stuff, basically not being, what the Western world would say, oh, this is clean with our modern sewage systems and stuff. You live in a third world country, there's sewage and stuff everywhere. So, here's the thing. Should we be really concerned? All the stuff I've read, we've had one case in the United States where someone's died. I think 2 or 3 other people are infected. We've brought some people who were infected over and quarantined them and everything else. Should we be concerned? Well, every year about 1,000 to 3,000 people die, in the United States from just the flu. Car accidents kill 34,000 people on average a year. You can get trampled by cattle. In 2011, I looked it up, 20 people in the United States of America were killed being trampled by cattle. In the United States of America, our whole history as of this moment, 1 confirmed death from Ebola. Pneumonia will take 50,000. So you actually stand a better chance of choking on your Big Mac at McDonald's and dying. Or it killing you from high cholesterol or all the sugars and stuff that's in the bread. You hear all these, think of the children. So Walmart parking lot is the more dangerous place for us than Ebola is right now. Because you can actually be hit by a car in the Walmart parking lot, die. You could be kidnapped in the Walmart parking lot. You can get in your car and drive. This is stuff we do every single day. We never give it a second thought. I'm driving down the interstate and there's semis like less than 3 feet away from my vehicle and they swarm. I'm done. Yet you don't hear stories about this on the news. You do hear stories like apparently the guy that died in Dallas, they took like his feces, his remains, because that would be the way you would catch it, because these are nurses that have contracted, and it's because these people who have it are sick. They've got bodily fluids and stuff. I'm guessing it's coming in contact with that or them bleeding, so they're going in there with like these hazmat suits on. They're saying probably taking the stuff off, removing it, or not following some proper protocol or whatever. But apparently they took this guy's feces and burned it, and for some reason they're sending it to Louisiana, and the people in Louisiana are like, we don't want that stuff here. But like I said, apparently it doesn't last very long outside the host, because if this stuff did, then like Central Africa and anywhere this virus went, people would just be dying in massive droves. I mean, it's like we couldn't stand a chance. So we just kind of have to realize the United States of America is not the third world. But why is it so rampant like in these Central African countries? Well, mainly, one, poor sanitation. Like I said, they don't have modern sewage systems and stuff like that everywhere, especially out in the rural areas. People rely on bushmeat where they go out and actually kill stuff like living in the shrub, or in the jungles basically, and they eat this food. And these animals can transmit this, they can carry this disease. So if the meat is not cooked well enough, well, you can get Ebola. So Liberia, you hear Liberia, Liberia, Liberia. It's different than here. But that's where, the people who had it came back here, tracked it, so we're going to be freaking out. So unfortunately, these third world countries, they don't have the modern health and medicine and stuff like that we do. But unfortunately, Africa's still Africa. You look at this thing here, they just don't have the money, power, resources, wealth, modern health, medicine to deal with this stuff. But you can see the United States is now in the same club as these other countries like South Africa, Madagascar, Ethiopia, Sudan, where there have been cases of this, Nigeria. So that is the club we're in because, like I said, what is it now? 3, maybe 4 people here. One of them's died. So you could say we have a 25% death rate from this. This current strand, though, like I said, is 50. But as far as should we be freaking out, scared, probably not yet. But, you never know. But like I said, your cheeseburger will probably kill you before Ebola. Livestock, probably it's 20 to 1 chance. So stay away from the cattle.